everyone. Today is Maundy Thursday, and that marks a very special weekend in the Christian calendar, which we all know as Easter. So today I wanted to talk about Maundy Thursday, which is what we call today, or generally what a lot of people call today. So, I've just realised I have a lot of light shining on my glasses. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Sorry. So for starters, I want to explain what the word Maundy means, and then I'm gonna tell you what happened on this night and try to explain it. So Maundy Thursday is also known as Holy Thursday, Passover, but I've looked up here on, what website is it? Bible Gateway, and it actually says, and also, by the way, we actually had this at our Zoom church service tonight about what it means, and it means mandate. And so a mandate is when Maundy, the word Maundy, actually means in Latin mandate. And mandate basically translates into the word commandment. So we know that God gave us the 10 commandments, but Jesus also gave us some commandments. And in fact, I think this is the one that they say is like the greatest commandment ever, which is in John 13, "A new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." So basically, the new commandment that he is giving us on this night, that's what this Maundy means, is that we do need to love one another. So, part of the story of Maundy Thursday is actually that was the night when Jesus was captured. First, they had the Lord's Supper, or some call it the Last Supper. And that's when Jesus met with his 12 disciples up in an upper room, like a second-story room of a home, and they shared the Passover meal. So what is the Passover meal, and what is that for? So every year they celebrated Passover festival, maybe you could call it. And that was to commemorate and in memory of when the Egyptians and Moses leading them left, left Egypt. So the night before they left, God commanded that they have a Passover meal. And what that means is they had to kill their best lamb, roast it with other ingredients like bitter herbs and stuff. But they had to actually take a piece of hyssop branch, I think it is, dip it in the blood, and then brush it on the mantle of their doorway. So the 3 frames of the door. And then what happened that night, sorry, my voice is a bit croaky. Then that night, the angel of death would pass over. And every home that was painted in that blood, I know it sounds gruesome, blood is a very important and symbolic thing in the Bible and in the faith of somebody who loves the Lord God. The angel of death would see that blood on there, and they would know that that person belongs to Jesus, and they would be safe. The people who didn't have that over their doorway, their first son, I think, was murdered. And so this is why every year they have a festival about Passover, because the angel passed over those homes. And I actually was part of a Maundy I was actually part of a Maundy Thursday service once where we had the meal. We actually had the same foods that God told the guys in the Bible, like Moses, to have. So we had the most incredibly delicious lamb and the bitter herbs, and I actually can't remember what else was there. The unleavened bread, I think. So unleavened bread is similar to, I guess, pita bread, that it doesn't rise. I think leavened means it rises, so it doesn't have yeast in it if it's not going to rise. And I forget what else they had at that meal. But anyway, we had that meal and during or as part of our service, and it just made it so real. It was incredible. I loved it. I loved it. And so every Easter, to me, it actually begins on Palm Sunday, which was last Sunday, and I should have done a video about that, but very, very briefly, I'll just tell you, that's when Jesus came into Jerusalem and everybody worshipped him and praised him as their one King and true Lord. And yeah, and then tonight is the start of the Easter weekend. Oh, those cats are hungry. Yeah. So getting back to Maundy Thursday now. Maundy Thursday, Jesus instructed them to set up this room in this home to have the Passover meal, which again I said was celebrated every year. So on Maundy Thursday, they had their meal, but as part of the meal, Jesus also took off his outer clothes and put on what I'm assuming is an apron, and he proceeded to wash all of their feet. Now, what's so powerful about that is, of course, they would have been dusty and dirty because pretty much everyone wore sandals. But the fact that Jesus would humble himself enough to act as a servant in order to wash their feet so that they could be clean in order to go to heaven, it's pretty powerful. It really is. Let me look up a Bible reading that actually explains it, and I'll read it to you. Where did it go? Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that he had wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you'll understand." "No," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet," because normally washing feet is a servant's kind of job. Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part of me," or part with me, sorry. "Then, Lord," Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who've had a bath need only to wash their feet. The whole body is clean. And you are clean, although not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash others' feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I've done for you. Truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the man who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." So that is John 13, verses 1 to verse 17. And so basically, he's just saying that, like, that the lowest of people, or the people who might be seen as the lower class are no more lowly than the higher class people. And he basically commands them to do this, and basically as a Christian, you just do what you're told by God. Like, I know that sounds really weird, but it's in obedience that God blesses us so much more than when we go our own way. So if Jesus tells us, go therefore and wash other people's feet, like not literally, I'm assuming, although why not? But I think if you did actually do it, you would understand how humbling that can be for the person who does it and the person who is getting their feet washed. I've had that done at church services in the past, and it's quite a humbling thing to have someone wash your feet, because who likes feet? Not me, really. Mine are, they're normal, but feet are gross. And so having someone gently wash your feet is, it's a weird feeling, but it's a good feeling. And, like Jesus says, once your feet are clean, you're with me, because the rest of you is already clean. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, I know I'm focusing on this a lot, but as part of this, he does give this new commandment. So I'll see if I can find that passage. It's just down a bit further. Maybe it's the next chapter. Oh man, now I can't find it. Anyway, so in somewhere that night, he does talk about the new commandment, that we need to love one another as he has loved us. So what else happened on this night of Maundy Thursday? That was the night that Peter betrayed Jesus. Not betrayed, denied. That's it. Peter actually denied Jesus, and Jesus told him he was going to do it, and he was like, no way. There is no way I'm going to do that, Lord God. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack and very quickly try to tell you what happened on this night, because a lot of things happened, but I don't have enough time to really go into it all unless I make this a super long video, which I don't want to do. I'm trying to make them shorter, not longer. So they had the meal. Judas Iscariot left the party, I guess you could call it, and he went and told the church Pharisees, the church leaders who were called Pharisees, where they can meet Jesus later to arrest him, because they just had it in for him. They just wanted him on a cross. They wanted him dead. They thought he was a false prophet and stuff. I heard last week on a church service that I listened to, that these Pharisees, they built the most amazing temple for Jesus, and yet they didn't even recognize him when he came. And the way they said it just really hit me quite strong. Like, they built this temple for Jesus, but then they didn't recognize Jesus when he was there. I don't know, it's really sad, but these things had to happen so that these prophecies from the Old Testament could all be fulfilled. Sorry, I have a fly bugging me. So anyway, the plan with Judas and the church leaders was that they would pay him a bag of 30 silver coins, and he would tell them where they could go to find Jesus later and catch him, so that they had him. And he said, you'll know the one that it is by the fact that I'm going to go give him a kiss. So after they had all finished their meal, they went to the Garden of Gethsemane, where they went to pray. And while Jesus went to pray, he asked them to watch over him and just stay awake, keep watch. And then he moved off further to another part of the garden and started saying things like, Lord God, why does this have to happen? And please, if it's your will, take this cup from me. And I know that sounds a little bit religious, but he was basically just saying, Lord God, is there another way? Do I have to do this? But you know what? If this is in your plans, then I'll just go with what you're doing, because you're the Lord. You're the God. And, and what he means by all of that is, does he have to actually die? Does he have to be sacrificed? Because don't forget, he was a human as well as God. And so he probably still had some of those human fears that we all have. We're all faced with mortality at the moment, especially with this coronavirus everywhere. And he's just pleading with God. Why? But then, deep down, he knew that this had to happen if we were going to be saved. So while he's doing that, the disciples actually fell asleep, and a couple of times he went and told them off, said, "Wake up, I'm going to go back and keep praying." Eventually, the soldiers, so the Pharisees, the church leaders, they got the Roman soldiers to come along with them, and they went and arrested Jesus in the garden. Judas was there with them, and remember how I said he told them that he would kiss the one that they wanted? So he went up to Jesus and basically he gave him a kiss on the cheek. And Jesus looked at him with a bit of admonishment and, "What are you doing, Judas?" I mean, he knew, of course. Anyway, so they grabbed him and they basically arrested him. There was a bit of a fight as some of the disciples, arced up, which I would have too if I was them, I think. Peter actually cut the ear off of a soldier with one of the swords. I think he just grabbed a sword from the Romans. And Jesus actually healed it right then and there. Anyway, so then they took him away to wherever they took prisoners. And Peter went to the servants' quarters in the area of where they had taken Jesus. Oh, go away, Fi. Maybe he wants to hear this story too. And while he was there, other servants were like, "You know this guy, don't you? You sound like him. You have the same sort of accent as him." And he's like, "No, I don't know him." And, that happened 3 times. And then he heard a rooster crowing. And so you've heard the story of Peter denying Jesus 3 times before a cock crows. That's what happened. He basically was like, "Nah, don't know the guy. Know nothing about him." And then when he heard the rooster crowing, the shame he would have just felt, the shame and guilt. I can understand where he's coming from, because you've just seen somebody that you love so dearly carted off, and he probably knows what's going to happen. But I think the fear for your own skin would kind of come up in front of everything else. It just trumps everything, your own life. And it would take a truly great person to, I think, not deny him when he's being pressured by all these servants who are all looking at him and waiting for him to respond. And, I put myself in his position and I think, yeah, that would be kind of scary. So meanwhile, when that happened, he just fled. He ran off, totally ashamed, totally guilt-ridden. Speaking of guilt, meanwhile, this is what I was going to say. Judas could not believe what he'd done, and he ended up going and tried to give the money back to the church leaders, and they're just like, nah, it's blood money. We don't want it. And so actually, I think they must have taken it back, because it ended up being used to buy a cemetery, I think. My history is going a bit all over the place in my head. I'm pretty sure they did that. And he went and hung himself. So, yeah, that was a pretty sad end. But then also what happened that night is the whole thing of them trying to get Pilate to say, yes, we'll crucify him. But they were like, he was like, no, he's done nothing wrong. And the church leaders are like, yes, he has. He's blasphemed. So blaspheming is, well, in today's language, it's probably like swear words. But back then also blaspheming is another way of saying something that I guess could be seen as sacrilegious. So him saying that he is the Father, he is the Son who was promised and prophesied to come. And then, yeah, they're saying that's not true. So that's their way of saying he's blasphemed against God and against them. And so he got locked up down in the jails. And I don't know, it kind of happened throughout the night, through past midnight over into the Friday. But he was sent to Herod. Herod didn't want to know a bar of him, so he was sent back to Pilate. Meanwhile, the church leaders, the Pharisees, are all trying to get these, political guys to agree to killing him. And they're just like, why? Like, I guess not knowing their faith, their Jewish faith, they didn't maybe understand how, to a Pharisee, this could be such a terrible thing that you're saying that you're the one that was coming. So, yeah, poor Jesus, back and forth, back and forth. In the end, and I think this actually happened the next day, so tomorrow, which I'll probably talk more about, they ended up whipping him and they were going to set him free. But I'll leave that for tomorrow, because I'm going to do another one of these tomorrow to talk about what actually happened tomorrow. So, yeah, tonight, a lot of people might not think is such a big deal, but tonight's a huge deal. Like, for starters, they celebrated a festival in honor of when the angel of death passed them over way back hundreds of years earlier, hundreds and hundreds of years. They had a meal together, probably their last as friends before Jesus died. He had two of his friends betray him, one by saying he doesn't know him from a bar of soap, and the other one by literally dobbing him in and, handing them the keys to his handcuffs. Not only that, but then getting shunted back and forth from the king to the governor to the king to the any normal person, it would have done their head in, I think, just the absolute betrayal. But it had to happen, though. Every year I think, oh, why did they do this? Maybe this year it won't happen. It's like when you watch a movie and someone, they're going to do something stupid and you're like, no, maybe this time they won't do it. And then, of course, they do. And I do sometimes, or quite often think, oh, why did they have to do this? Why couldn't they have just... But then I think, if you're in their position, Linda, what would have you done? So, yeah. In some ways, it makes me glad that maybe I'm living in this age, this time, because imagine growing up with Jesus as your friend. Technically, I did grow up with Jesus as my friend, but imagine being able to touch him and hang out with him just as a buddy. I think that'd be really cool as a mate. And of course, he's still my mate now. It's just different to a physical person being there right next to you. So anyway, I've done a lot of talking already, and I think I should go because I have another video to do tomorrow. So on this Passover night, this Last Supper, this Lord's Supper night, this last night of Jesus' life, I just pray for you that you can love each other as Jesus loved us. I do pray that you will be able to humble yourself, even to people that you think are beneath you or below you on the pecking order, and do something nice for them, just as Jesus has always done for us. That you put yourself last instead of first, and that you build each other up, because that's what relationships are all about. Building each other up, making the other person feel worthwhile, growing their confidence, growing their love for the world and for people, and hopefully for Jesus, ultimately. So I might just say a quick prayer and then I'm going to go. So dear Lord God, I thank you so much for tonight. I thank you that there are people all over the world who are able to still worship you through church services online. And I thank you that you've given me an outlet here to share my faith and to maybe explain a little bit jumbly, but still explain, Lord God, just what your life story is over, weeks or days. Or I just thank you so much that you came for us, that you went through the suffering that you did, and you know, even the betrayal of friends. Like, I have had many friends betray me, and I just think none of them, though, took me to jail, and none of them set out to kill me. And I just think how it must have felt for you as a human, but then also as our God, knowing that you had to do this for us, or we were all doomed. So anyway, Lord God, as I go to sleep tonight and as others go to sleep, I just pray that you be with us and really help us reflect on what this weekend means for each of one of us personally. Thank you, dear Lord. Amen. So what's on the cards for me now? It's 9:20. I'm going to go watch The Passion of the Christ, especially because we had online church, but sometimes I just actually every year I usually watch at least 2 different Jesus movies. So the one that I watch every year without fail, and I have loved since I was a kid, was the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries. I saw it on TV as a young kid, and I just fell in love with the whole thing. I think it's like 6 hours long or something, but it's something that I do on Maundy Thursdays and Fridays, especially Fridays. Even as kids, we used to have all those biblical movies that were on TV. Not even the Moses ones or anything, but actual Jesus, but actual Jesus story, like his story. Every year there were at least 2 every year, every Friday afternoon, every Good Friday. And I remember we used to sit there in our lounge room on the farm after having, going to church in the morning and having lunch. And then we'd all, us kids, maybe not our parents, but us kids would all go watch whatever Jesus movie was on. And I always at 3 p.m. would check the weather, see if it was stormy. Sometimes it was stormy, which just made it even more real that, because it was stormy when Jesus died. And so, and these days, there's just nothing like that on TV. So I always like to maybe just feel it more by watching some movies. So tonight I'm going to watch The Passion. And if I don't fall asleep after that, I will start Jesus of Nazareth and I'll finish it tomorrow afternoon. So I'm just going to be very much in the Jesus zone, which will be really cool. And, just love him and just, be more in his presence, be more in that mindset. So I think it'll be cool. So whatever you're doing tonight, I hope you sleep well and I'll chat to you tomorrow. See ya.